Welcome to this first episode of Comics Characters Chronology. Today we're going to be looking at the first appearance of my favorite character, Batman. And this is in Detective Comics number 27, which is cover dated May of 1939. And the first thing I want to do here is quickly review some of the credits, I guess, for each issue. That's what we'll do. Each appearance, we'll take a look at the credits and who's behind this. All right, so the maybe notorious individual known as Bob Kane, who is a creator of Batman, but really the co-creator, is the cover pencils and inks on this issue. So it is Bob Kane's design, and in the effort to discredit Bob Kane, a lot of people will point out that this design borrows from some other things, but you know, the reality is all art borrows from other things, so it seems a little bit unreasonable to complain that much about him. All right, and then on the inside of the issue, we have Bill Finger writing, really the other co-creator of Batman, someone who did not get his credit in his day, sadly, but more recently is starting to get some real credit for all the work he did on the character. Pencils and inks done by Bob Kane. No idea who did the colors, and letters also, at least we assume, done by Bob Kane. All right, the first thing I want to do here with each episode is take a look at the cover, at least as long as our character appears on the cover. So let's look at that first and see if anything really stands out, is worth commenting on. Now for me, when I look at the cover, I like to put myself a little bit in the position of those who saw this cover for the first time. And something that jumps out a little bit for me is there's a bit of a question of whether we're looking at a hero or a villain here, right? The character of Batman is obviously terrifying, dark, maybe almost demonic looking, and frankly looks every bit as villainous as this kind of average looking chap that he's got in a chokehold here. On top of that, I mean, he's swinging this fella out over what must presumably be a significant drop, as it appears to be betwixt buildings and just out over the open air. So to me, I mean, you look at it, it's not exactly clear, at least from the cover, that we're dealing with a hero here in the character of Batman. Now that, of course, will change as we get into the story, but at the very least, it does look a little bit menacing. And then the other thing that stands out to me here is this man on the roof who appears to be maybe a little too startled to fire his gun. I don't know, he's holding his gun out there. Maybe he's worried about hitting his partner. I'm not sure. You know, crooks, they're apparently loyal and worried about the possibility of shooting their co-crooks. Seems not quite believable. So I'm not going to do a beat-by-beat breakdown of every single story. That is, frankly, not what I'm trying to do here. Just retell the story to you. But it's worthwhile to give a quick summary. Again, a lot of these issues, especially like this one, it's going to be available on DC Infinite, their comic service, kind of like Netflix. You pay a flat fee and you can get monthly access to a ridiculous amount of comics. So it's worthwhile reading on there. Certainly don't have to have done that, but you know, you get a little more out of the episode here if you have. Basic story summary here is that Batman puts a stop to the plot of one business partner who is killing off his other partners in order to get out of a contract. Pretty simple, basic idea, but really serves to bring out already this early both the superhero crime fighter aspects of Batman, as well as, in keeping in line with the title of the book, the detective aspect of our character. So there's a few things within the story here that I want to highlight. First and foremost is that we see here, a la Spider-Man, who has never dropped the hyphen. The name Batman, the title, is hyphenated here. Now, I don't remember exactly when this is dropped. I will try to call it out the first time we see it without the hyphen. It's interesting that there's a hyphen here, given that Superman does not have one, but Batman, I guess because this is two words, does get a hyphen. All right, one thing to note here, story-wise, is that this is clearly not the first adventure of Batman. This is not, you know, the origin, the first crime that he fights, all of that, because we actually open up the story with Commissioner Gordon talking to Bruce Wayne and mentions that there's something going on with this Batman fellow. So clearly he's been out hunting down crime, doing his thing prior to this particular story. So the quote-unquote Batmobile is not yet around here. We actually see that Bruce Wayne is driving around a rather vanilla red just standard car, standard automobile, nothing special, nothing that stands out. And one might wonder if one might connect that car to the secret identity of Batman, but those kind of things aren't that well thought through at this point in the Golden Age comic books. All right, and last thing to point out here that I thought was very interesting is it's not until the very end of the issue that we get any confirmation that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Now we notice throughout the story that there's Bruce Wayne leaving very conveniently when Batman shows up, and then the two are never around each other. So you probably suspect that if you're reading this for the first time and don't already know that. But it is at the end of the issue that we get, for sure confirmation. This here, Bruce Wayne, is Batman. A couple thoughts on the character real quick. One of the things I want to do with this is just talk about character development, things we see that are different, things that with our modern understanding of these characters might be a little more unexpected. And for that, it does seem to be Batman's callous regard for the life of others, particularly crooks within this story. We're used to seeing Batman making efforts to protect the lives of his enemies. Here he goes out of his way not to, and in fact puts them in harm's way. One of the first examples of this is as he's fighting the crooks on a roof here, as it's just following a murder attempt. As they're escaping, he throws one completely off the roof with no regard as to whether the fall breaks the man's neck or anything like that. And then at the end of the story, we see that Batman has punched our sort of main villain here so hard that he falls into a vat of acid, obviously taking his life. And Batman makes no effort to catch him whatsoever, and has a rather brusque attitude towards the death of this villain. So it is not the Batman we're familiar with in regards to protecting the life of others. That must be something that obviously develops over time. So Batman here might not be overtly taking a life, but if someone happens to, end up biting the bullet, so to speak, let's just say his general sentiment is that it was probably earned. All right, so Bob Kane is a man who later certainly takes his fair share of criticism, maybe even a little more than is warranted. But for this issue, honestly, he does really, I think, quite a solid job. As the royalty checks start to come in down the line, I think he takes a step back in his artistic effort, but certainly not here. This issue, especially for a Golden Age comic, which I personally am a fan of and am pretty familiar with, he does a really fine job at introducing us to the character of Batman. He really strikes an impressive image in this comic. Batman's a very imposing figure, somewhat haunting, and really stands out amongst the other characters in the book. What I personally was impressed with was the fact that it's clear through the art just how sure of himself Batman is. We know, to this point, I guess we looking back on it know, but there's no indication, in the story either that this is at all anyone with superpowers of any sort. It is, as far as readers would be concerned, just a man, yet putting himself, obviously incredibly dangerous situations, and very sure of himself that he knows for sure he's got it under control. And at the same time, too, I want to highlight Kane's work with the action scenes. I really feel like the action scenes in this book, they have sort of a frantic, chaotic energy to them. They feel a bit frenzied, yet Batman in each of these scenes is very much like the calm center of the storm. And that's another way he just stands out in the issue. So as much as Bill Finger does deserve credit for the writing, really, especially this early early stuff here, I think Bob Kane does really bring the character of Batman out with his work as well. And of course, to that end, it's hard not to compare this somewhat anyways to the first appearance of Superman, done by Siegel and Schuster, who that also has an energy to it, but it's different. It's much more controlled, and it does, the energy springs forth from Superman in that issue, that first appearance of Superman. And here it's very different. I mean, it does have a supernatural energy to it, because Superman obviously, does have supernatural powers in that sense. Here, it's much more controlled, and in that sense, I think we see a little more of the human element of Batman rather than the superhuman element of Superman. So all in all, this is really, I think, exactly what you kind of expect from a quality Golden Age comic. It's not, over the top in terms of the opposition they face. At least this early in the Golden Age, it's relatable foes with, opposition to that looks like the best of what humanity can be, not necessarily gods among men, but very much something that feels within human reach. And that is true of Superman, which I'm sure we'll get to Superman. Even though he has supernatural powers, it does still strike that sort of like, still kind of within human reach. Maybe we can't, do the things he does, but maybe we can be that type of a character in the world. And here we see that with Batman, right? Batman is very much the best of what we could hope to be. So, all right, so let's wrap it up there. And thank you so much for joining me. We'll get back to Batman for sure. But because I want to mix it up and go some different places, next time we're actually going to look at the first appearance of Spider-Man, because why not? We're going to do both a little DC and a little Marvel. So let's take a look at Spider-Man and get into Amazing Fantasy number 15 next episode. Thanks.